Founders, welcome back to the 0 to 5,000 podcast, where we obsess over the convergence of human potential and business results. Today, our hosts Drew McClure and Jordan Mitchell have another insightful conversation for you. So let's jump right in.
All right, founders, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Manick Bhan. Manick is the founder and CTO of Search Atlas, an all-in-one SEO platform used by agencies and enterprise brands like Shutterfly and LinkGraph, a mission-driven SEO and digital marketing agency. He has been working in the SEO space for over a decade, built 8-figure SEO companies, and recently launched the first SEO AI automation tool of its kind, AutoSEO. Manick is a passionate public speaker with past experience speaking at Brighton SEO, AdWorld, and Traffic and Conversion Summit. He presents on a wide range of topics, including, but not limited to, SEO, software development, and AI. And today, from Medellín, Colombia, joining us on the podcast is Manick himself. So Manick, thank you for being here.
Great to be here, Drew. Thank you for having me.
Well, my man, how did this get started? I know you have a very long background in SEO and all things tech, but where did this particular idea for you get started?
Yeah, so the thing that brought me into SEO was actually building my first tech company, which was a live entertainment ticketing platform, and trying to get that company to grow, finding out how do we get our product in front of people's eyeballs. What I didn't realize at the time was that the biggest ticketing company in the world is actually not Ticketmaster or StubHub. It's actually Google. Google drives globally probably 10 to $100 trillion worth of economic value for people, both through ads as well as organic search. And so in order for us to win, we had to get found in Google. And that was hard. That was no simple task. We had spent long nights, months and months trying to figure out how do we crack the code. And we did have some success, but we had a lot of failure too. And honestly, we felt like really we weren't in control of our destiny on Google. And so eventually, after I sold that company and exited it, and then I took some time off, there was this one question that I had left in the back of my mind, which is, how does the algorithm work? Right? There's no monkey behind the curtain moving things up and down in the search results, right? It's an algorithm. It's a formula. And so it's a formula. We can reverse engineer it. Turns out that formula is way more complex than I could have even imagined. Today, we've cracked the code and I understand the formula very, very well. But when we began as a research company. We were just scraping the internet, trying to crawl the whole thing and just understand more about how the internet works, how it's structured, and how Google ranks information. So that's how we began, was really as a research company, not even as a business.
What did you discover that shocked you the most during that phase?
Oof. The thing that shocked me the most is that you can't trust what they say.
How so?
There were so many things that they've told us that have turned out to not be true. One of the things that they've told us is that they don't actually have like a site-wide domain authority metric. They told us that they don't track user signals, that they're not tracking data from Google Chrome, that they're not looking at that information. That ends up not being true. They're actually, thanks to actually a great friend of mine, his name is Irfan Azimi, he leaked the Google algorithm update. The algorithm's content warehouse that they use. And through that data, and also through some of the data from Congress documents when Google was subpoenaed, we're able to learn more about how the algorithm works than we ever could before, and find out that a lot of things that they've told us that they said were true were actually not true.
Why do you think that the disinformation or the deception around that?
Good question. Because they would prefer that we not really understand how it works. They like the quality of the search results, but they don't want the search results to be gamed or manipulated. And so the less they say about it, the better. The search quality team at Google is very secretive, very hard to penetrate that team and get access to them or talk to them or even know who they are. Sometimes we've been able to get information about it, but they're pretty much cloaked because they don't want anyone to be able to access that code. And even that team in Google works very differently than any of the other teams at Google. They don't really share how the algorithm works because they don't want that to be leaked.
Interesting. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, I don't like deception in any case, but I guess it kind of makes sense if depending on if you're a bad actor or a good actor in the space, right? Like if if you could game the system for ill uses and spam the internet with BS that nobody wants, that sucks. But if you're a company like you that's trying to help good companies get their products out there and known and seen, then it's very much valuable information that you're not having access to, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people get hurt by Google not really sharing how it works, because what they kind of want you to believe is if you build it, they will come. Like the Field of Dreams thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just build your product, build your website, build your e-commerce store or whatever it might be, build your blog. And as long as you do a good job of creating good content and valuable information, like don't worry. Just don't worry about it. We'll find it, people will find it, and you'll slowly build your website up. That just is not true. It's not true unless you understand how SEO works. It's a very frustrating channel, to be honest.
Yeah. So after you started gleaming some of the insights of how this really works, what was Search Atlas able to do and then create from there?
So, initially the software that we had built, it wasn't even called Search Atlas. It was just technology that was just looking to research and study the backlink profile of the internet and analyze those websites and take other SEO tools, take their data and overlay it on our data just to try to understand the truth of the ranking system. And what happened was we started to slowly peel back the curtain and learn a little bit more and learn a little bit more. We went into the patents, geeked out on the patents, studied the patents, learned more insights. And then we ran some correlation studies, which is basically loading up the results in a bunch of data. And the result will tell you what metrics matter, which ones don't. So we learn even more from that. But the big breakthroughs happened when we began running experiments. We took real websites, we did certain things on them, and we watched what happens. And that taught us more than anything else did.
Wow. And where did you go from there?
So when we started to get clients, and it was actually pretty easy for me because I have a lot of friends in tech, and a lot of them wanted me to be kind of their fractional CMO. So I stepped in to help some startups grow, and as we were helping them grow, we were doing them as case studies, SEO case studies, and learning. And slowly we built our agency up to over 100 active clients, spending anywhere between 5,000, some 10,000, some even more than that. So we had a war chest of resources that we could use to really accelerate our ability to automate certain parts that we knew worked for the ranking system. So the first thing that we did was we realized we needed to build authority. The way that Google works is a lot like a voting system. The sites that link to your site are like votes, and the better the sites are that linking to you, those votes count more. So we figured out a system where we could build authority on the internet by getting published on different publishers, and we scaled that up. And that actually, in our first year of business, got us to do probably about 2.5, 3 million of revenue, which was really exciting, stepping into this kind of brave new world of search. And from there, the rest was history. We just kept going.
So 2 to 4 million in revenue in your first year. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's astronomical growth in a year.
It was amazing. And get this, I wasn't even in the office most of the time. I was traveling. I was in like Thailand. I was in Japan taking photos and meeting people and like having this cultural experience and taking time off from work. And the team was in my townhouse in Manhattan, like literally like 4 people, 4 people, just keeping the systems going. And I was just kind of having fun. You can't run a business like that forever. Like obviously things start to fall apart. So it was great while it lasted. Then when I came back from those travels and trips, we really professionalized it, and we, turned it into a great brand, and proud of what it is today.
What was the key in that first year for that accelerated growth? I know there's no hack, but what was the key to y'all?
I want to say we just gave people what they wanted. Like we knew what they needed because we needed that same thing too. And we figured out how to get that for them so that it was on tap. The guys who needed to build their authority, build the backlinks, we really aced that. And we were able to do that better, faster, at a bigger scale that none of our competitors could. It helped that I was the CTO, so I built the technology, the platform for it. While people were working out of spreadsheets and doing things by their hands, we had automated 90, 7% of it. So
Hmm.
we had a huge advantage.
So you mentioned earlier that you get votes in a sense by other websites linking to yours. Does that mean like if, a credible website like Forbes mentions your website in an article, that's a link? Is that what we're referring to?
If they mention your website or they're linking to it, so there's a hyperlink where someone can click from Forbes to your website, that is a
Okay.
backlink. And that backlink from a site that has a lot of traffic, like Forbes, that counts for a lot. Google trusts them. So if Forbes is linking to you, you got one of the strongest sites on the entire internet saying that Drew is legitimate, that Drew is good for whatever the context around that backlink is.
Spaces. Okay, so that makes sense. So then you're looking, if you have a client that's looking to do that, you're looking at the space they're in, and you're thinking, who are the credible, on the internet, who are the credible sites in that space that we need to have some interaction with that gets us that authority. Is that it?
Yeah. We actually scrape them from Google. So we look at the things that they want to rank for. So let's say you're a ski shop, right? And you want to rank for ski poles, ski rentals, all this kind of stuff. What we'll do is we'll go and scrape a couple hundred search results from Google. We put them together and then we email those websites and we try to get in contact with them so that we can now work with those publishers. And now we have a shot to
Hmm.
find a way to get mentioned on their website, maybe in an article. Maybe we can give them a new article. Maybe we can do a partnership. So there are a lot of
Yeah.
ways to do it, but that's essentially how it works.
Does a paid ad through them work the same way?
Good question. And the answer is depends. People probably don't like hearing depends, but if
Yeah.
that link from the ad is in the content in like an kind of there's what's called information retrieval zones. If it's in a zone that's clearly an ad unit, probably doesn't count for much. If it's in a
That's what I would
zone
think.
that's more inside the body of the content and it's more of an organic location, then it can have a big impact.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's where my mind was going. Was like I would think the algorithm would treat that a little differently if I had to clearly pay to be promoted on that versus organic represents we sought you out to some degree or we respect your voice in this article to some degree. Is that kind of what it is?
Mm-hmm. And there's actually specific tags that you can put on any link that tell Google how you see that link. So if someone's buying like that sponsored article on your site, you might put a no follow tag on that
Hmm.
link so that Google knows that you don't really want them to follow that and give them your authority. You're just linking to them maybe as a partnership or maybe that someone on your team or users are creating content on your website and you're not controlling that link. You don't want to be associated with that site necessarily.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you get back, you have astronomical growth in that first year. You're sitting there going, dude, we got something. Holy crap. There's a huge market response to this. Where's your head at in year two? What now do we need to do with this success, with this momentum?
Mm. So this is like enter limiting beliefs, right? If I believed, if I really believed in myself, I would have just put everything, I bet everything on this. But instead, I was trying to be conservative and careful, and I spent some time and a good portion of my resources on real estate investing, investing in different high opportunity real estate opportunities in New Jersey and in Las Vegas and Miami. And so I made those investments because I wanted passive income so that, I wouldn't have to worry. Um,
Yeah.
However, now if I could go back and do it differently, I would have just skipped that entire chapter.
Mm. Why? Because it took away focus and resources?
Yes, exactly. I look at our ability to grow that business and the rate at which it's able to grow. A real estate business is so capital intensive that you can't double, triple, quadruple it, right? In the same way that you can with a technology company. And so
Hmm.
now when I look back, had I doubled down on what was working back then, I think we would be even further ahead of where we are today. But that's,
Yeah.
hindsight's 2020.
Of
Tough to play that
course.
game
Of
all the time.
course. Yeah. Tell me more about that. Did you wake up at some point and go, I'm doubting myself? Like, did you see the game a little bit, or is it now many years removed that you look back and see, man, I had some limiting beliefs that shaped my focus in that time?
You know, they say like it's hard to know what you don't know. And at that time, that was something that I didn't know. I didn't have the right mentorship. I didn't have the right community around me of other people who were building at that time to kind of give me some of those other perspectives. And so I was playing it safe. Now today, when I look back now, and today we're betting everything on what we have because we're so confident in it, and we see that actually what we're doing is of service to so many people that I have full confidence in what we're doing. I also now have the perspective to realize like if you don't bet on yourself in this way, then no one else will. You just have to do it. You have to always bet on yourself. And so now looking back, I would have done things differently,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's hard to know that at the time.
Yeah. I haven't talked to anybody, myself included, who's taken risks and pushed themselves and not come up against some serious limiting beliefs. And so what would you say to that person if they're in that right now, where they're like, man, I'm taking a chance. I've put myself out there, but I'm really starting to doubt myself or my capabilities. Like, what's the self-talk, or what's the thing that we need to do to actually move through that thing?
Mm. So it's really hard to debug that solo, right? Unless you're good at journaling and you're very self-reflective. I don't know. I definitely wasn't. Find a coach, find a mentor, find
Mm.
a therapist who can help you work through some of those topics. Bring them up proactively. Know that you want to shine a spotlight on them, and then work through them and figure out where you stand on those issues and learn from that. You have to be in charge of your own growth. And so
Mm.
for me, one of the best things that I ever did was put myself into spaces and communities of other people who are challenging themselves in similar ways, that I was able to learn from them, and they were able to mentor me and also guide me in my path.
What did that look like for you? Is that like a business mastermind type format, or what was that?
It was well, first it was a coach. I got an amazing coach. His name is Andrew Horan. Amazing guy, great friend, and just an amazing human. So I have an amazing coach, and he's helped me grow in all areas of my life. The second thing is the communities, right? Like you're asking, mastermind groups. And I'm a member of a lot of really awesome communities. For me, the communities that I stepped into were more related to my industry because I wanted to be among people in my industry. So for the listeners out there thinking like, what does that look like for me? Well, it really depends on what your industry you're in. So, whatever industry you're in, there's conferences, there's community meetups, there's masterminds that happen. Find one that inspires you, meet a couple people, see if you click with them. And if you feel that chemistry, if you feel like that's a community you want to be a part of, just dive in. And it's
Mm.
hard to even imagine where you can be 1 year later.
I love that. Let's stay on that topic for a little bit. Are there any other routines or habits or things you've built into your life that help you just continue to be the most energized, you know, healthy version of yourself?
Yeah. And I'll give you mine that worked for me. There's obviously a lot of people that have different things that work for them. For me, I had an issue where I had so many different tasks piling up on my plate, and I was doing a little bit of everything every day. Um, and that wasn't working for me. I would find myself so exhausted at the end of the day for having to switch multitask through different parts of my brain. Now what I do is I have themed days. So each day
Hmm.
of the week has a very specific theme, and it's the same every week. So I've got Mondays are my product days where I work with my team on the engineering side. Tuesdays, Thursdays are my sales and partnership days. Wednesdays, I work with my internal team, and Fridays are for content. And that's it. I don't do any meetings on any of those days outside of those themes. And that keeps my energy. It helps me manage my energy levels for what I'm working on and not having to switch context. So that was a
Cool.
huge unlock.
God, I love that. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about that, but that makes so much sense for the brain to be able to settle in on this vein for the day. Like, I think we underestimate how hard it is to switch from a strategic way of thinking to a creative way to a task way. Have you ever heard of? I think it's called it's absorption rate.
Mhm.
That's a vague way of putting that. But basically, there's a minimum amount of time that it takes your brain to settle into a given task, right? So the way that I've heard it put that I really relate to would be the first mile of jogging, right? You're going from a static state to an in motion state. And there's a minimum amount of time based on your fitness level for your body to adapt and get and like settle in and go, hey, we're moving. We're not going to stop moving. We need to like settle into this. And that's why the first mile is always the hardest. It's the least efficient. You're breathing heavier than you are in mile 2, mile 3. And the way I've heard it put is a task switching from one task to another. There's a minimum amount of time that your brain is adjusting to, okay, we're in a different gear now. We're in creative mode. And so if you're doing that a lot, you're running that first mile a lot throughout the day. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And that's the exhaustion versus like, no, I got past mile 1 and the rest of the day I was kind of in that runner's high of I stayed in this particular zone, my brain settled in. And is that kind of the experience you've had having different themed days?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why. And there's another element to it, which I figured out as well, which is when you look at a project that you have to do, something that you've kind of been putting off, that you just, it's going to take a lot of time and energy and work, and you just don't want to do it. And you look at it like, this is going to take me all day to do it. If you can slice that up and figure out what that first mile looks like, the tiny micro completion of that task or that project,
Yeah.
and just say, I'm not committing to do this entire task. I'm just going to commit to do the micro version of it just to get that first step done. It's amazing how often your brain is just able to, okay, I just did that. I'm just going to barrel through it now. It's not going to be as bad as I thought. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Have you ever had that experience, Drew?
Oh, 100%. My brain goes to the entire effort involved and the complexity of it, and I get overwhelmed just like I would if I say, I'm going to go run 10 miles, and you're currently static and not energized, and you're like, I don't have 10 miles of energy. You commit to the first mile, just like you're saying. Like, I will actually give myself the out. We run 1 mile. If we're not feeling it, we get to go home. But 9 times out of 10, you get through that first mile and you go, let's do 2.
Yeah.
And then you get through 2, you're like, dude, we're on a roll, man. Like, let's do 3, you know?
And then that runner's
so
high
100%
kicks in.
see it.
You get the euphoria, and then you can run forever, as long until you decide you're bored,
It's the same with the gym, man. It's the same with the gym. I actually, at this stage of my life, I like the gym better than I do running, because once I start running 5 miles and beyond, my joints start hurting and all that kind of stuff. But I had a client, so I do coaching as well. So I had a client I was working with, and the thing I had him do, he kind of got out of the rhythm of going to the gym. And I said, dude, today I just want you to go. And I want you just to go. And I want you to do 1 set of whatever you want. That's all. And if you want to go home after that, you can go home. And literally, I mean it. If you go and you just do 1 set of curls, 1 set of whatever, you get to go home, job well done. And then I want you to do it again tomorrow. And within a week, the dude was back to the gym, loving going to the gym.
Amazing.
It's the whole commitment in your mind of like, I have to go and work out so hard. I've got to go and I'm out of shape. And I'm like, no. We just got to get this back in your life. We just got to get this habit again of you showing up to this area. But I haven't heard someone talk about that in the work context. And I think that is so helpful, especially in your world. You guys have a lot of project stuff, it's more project based. It's complex. It's multi-layered. You already know you might have a roadblock you haven't prepared for yet down the road, but just getting going is going to get your brain firing on all cylinders is how I'm hearing it.
Absolutely. That's it.
That's so cool. The other part I want to talk to you about, just again, thinking about what I love about entrepreneurs and business owners. I mean, every business owner is an entrepreneur, but specifically one that started it themselves, is they're always looking at the world slightly different. No entrepreneur is the same, but they have taken an approach that is often asking why. Why? I don't have to live here. I don't have to do my job this way. I don't have to structure a business this way. There's freedom, there's creativity, and you are living in Colombia now because you and your wife took a trip there. She's from there, and something resonated with you, and you had the freedom to go, shoot, let's just build a business here. That's fascinating to me. How do you think about place, right? How do you think about place mattering in your life? That it actually, to you, maybe not every personality, but to you, it sounds like place matters, that you want to feel connected to where you actually live day in and day out.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's probably at least 10 dimensions to life. One would be, your health and your fitness. Another element would be the food that you're eating. And I think where you live, your home, and the aesthetic quality of your life in terms of what do I feel like when I leave the house? What do I feel like when I'm in my backyard? What do I feel like when I wake up in the morning and I'm in my bedroom or I'm in my office working? What does it feel like to be sitting here at this desk and this table? You want to be in an environment that inspires you, that energizes you. And if you can connect to that feeling of a time where you felt really energized, maybe on vacation, maybe it was working someplace that was really nice, a cool cafe, maybe it was around people, being around certain kinds of people who really energized you, whether maybe a mastermind group or just some friends. I just found that for me, that part of my life is really important. And uh, you can find beautiful places, obviously, all over the world. But for me, Colombia was just something special. So we really connected to it when we came here for about a month. A little bit of a vacation, a little bit of a scouting trip to see if we can open a new office here. And we just fell in love with Medellín. So it happened so naturally.
What about it do you think was resonating with you? Are you even able to articulate that, or is it just a felt sense?
Hmm.
Is it the culture, the people? Is it the landscape? Like sometimes like just the nature itself and how a city looks or operates can resonate with somebody.
Yeah. Language really fails with stuff like this. It's an internal
Yeah.
feeling, and then we try to rationalize. And so for me, when I try to explain it, a big part of it would be the people. Uh, I lived in New York City for 14 years and I loved it, but no one wants to chit chat. No one wants to, you know, ask you about your day. Like, hey man, how's it going? You're like, good. What's up? What do you need? Right? They're off
Yeah.
to the
We're
next
all
thing.
heads down passing each other in New York.
Totally. It's probably a place that I felt like I had so many people around me all day through the city, but you could feel so lonely because no one's really
Yeah.
connecting, right? This country is the opposite of that, where if you go up to someone at a shop or whatever and you're trying to do a transaction, it would be rude not to ask them how their day is or to
Wow.
have sort of that sort of dialogue with them. That's part of life here. So that just felt like kind of the place that I wanted to live, where I also wanted to raise my family.
Yeah. Ah, so cool. I love that. Man, let's switch back to business for a little bit.
Okay.
Did you have any what I would call near-death experiences in this company? Meaning, we hit something that we thought, crap, this might be it. I don't know if we're going to be able to overcome this, or we hit some roadblock that we didn't expect, or a cash shortage, or anything like that, or has that not happened?
I'm grateful that uh, that never happened with this company, but with my first one, I hit zero twice, where I like literally ran out of all the money in my bank account, and I was couch surfing with my friends in New York City, staying on their couch while I'm building this tech company, and eventually, at one point, I had to move in with my parents again, which is just never a good feeling. So yeah, I've
Sure.
been there, man. I've been there.
How did you get out of that?
How did I get out? I kept going. I you know how they say like an animal that's like kind of brought into a corner is like the most dangerous, right? Because it's fighting for its life. There's some
Yeah.
truth to that with us too. That when we're in a place in our lives where we have to be scrappy, we have to be we have to find a solution where there is none. That we do some of our most creative work. Necessity is the mother of invention. So I think being in that position, I just knew that I couldn't fail and I had to keep going.
Mm,
So I just kept pushing.
heck yeah. Yeah. I always ask that question because I had, he's a friend now, but at the time he was just a guest I brought to speak to some founders that I coached. And it's a guy that's built and scaled 2 unicorn companies and now is an investor through Excel and many, tech companies and different industries. And I had him come speak to him, just lessons learned as an investor as well as a founder. And one of the things that caught me off guard is he said, I've rarely seen a really, really huge successful company that didn't have at least 1 or 2, what he called NDEs, near death experiences.
Mhm.
And there was like a sigh of relief in the room because I think so many people have been through that in one company or another and always felt like, did I do something wrong? Like, whatever. But it was like, oh, this is kind of par for the course for success, is that you often get these back up against the wall moments and often key innovations or pivots or something comes out of that if you got the guts to keep going, right? And
100%.
so that's what it sounds like with you as well.
Drew, I don't know a single, like, I have a lot of friends are founders that have gone through this journey. I don't have a single friend that didn't make it. Every single one
Mm,
of my friends that kept going and believed in themselves, the ones from, I look back 10 years ago, those guys have all found success because they all kept going. They kept supporting each other as well. That's the power
yeah,
of community, is to support each other, especially when we're having those self-doubts or we don't know if the company really can continue. That's the power of communities, to help us keep going and push through those difficult moments and challenges. But just believe in
yeah,
yourself that if you keep going and you don't give up on what you're building, that you can, maybe it's not this company, maybe it's the next one, right? That's the other
exactly.
thing.
Yes,
You will find your way 100%.
exactly. And that, I'm so glad you said that, because sometimes, like, again, you talk to Mark Cuban, you talk to whoever, they're like, no, I had this business fail. I had this business fail. Like, sometimes the business does fail, but we're talking about you, and you is bigger than that business.
For sure.
You is like, did you keep going? Did you bet on the next thing? Did you learn from that and then roll that into the next idea you had? That's a longer game. That's not like this one brand and this one idea you had. That's you carving out a channel of success and impact in the world. That might be that thing, it might be the next thing, or two things from now. That seems to be a common trait. Way different personalities. So many different personalities are successful. So many different backgrounds, but that trait seems to be very, very much in common. Would you agree?
For sure. And I think you almost learn more from the failures than from success. And so for the people that I know, and I also invest in companies too. A lot of times when I find a tech founder that had built their first company and they failed, I'm actually more likely to want to invest in them than someone who is
Yeah.
on their first company and they haven't yet tasted the fear or had to basically own their failure. The guy who's
Yeah.
failed, I know something about him, that he's still at the game. He hasn't given up on himself. He's still in it. And
Yeah.
from that failure, he's learned a ton of important lessons that are going to help him when he has to make that choice and decision. He's going to make a better choice. And probably he's picked a better business model the second time around too.
Yes. I had a mentor, it's probably 10 years ago, tell me, I don't fully trust someone that doesn't walk with a limp.
Mhm.
And
That's
I
great.
said, what is that? I was like, what does that mean? He goes, I mean, someone that hasn't really taken a lump yet, that, wasn't in the arena to the degree that they got some kind of injury, healed from it, and carried that with them into the rest of their life. If they don't walk with a limp, I know they got some lessons coming that they don't foresee. And so I can't fully trust their opinion yet. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel the same way. It's like, it's not that you discredit the person's ideas or discredit, they might be onto something, but you also know there's a wisdom not there that only the rough times can bring out and show us, beyond intellectual, even this podcast. I love giving people lessons they can expect to learn. I want to shorten the learning curve, right? But it's still going to be different listening to you talking about it, and then they find themselves on their parents' couch. It'll be comforting to remember this story, but you're now learning that experience firsthand. And you're going, shoot, do I believe in myself? Am I going to get up, get going, get feral, get scrappy, right? And then that's a real wisdom in your life. Yeah. What's cool is there's a term that's coming out of psychology now that they call post-traumatic growth. And it's the recognition that there's not just trauma, and then we associate that with, like, yeah, pain the rest of my life. They're like, no. Depending on what you do with it, there's often something called post-traumatic growth, which is an explosion of growth on the other side of having come out of something and survived and learned and adapted. And in business and life, I mean, I've been through stuff. That phrase actually helped me go, what if this is a catalyst? Not just a bad thing has happened and now that bad thing is a part of my life. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What if this is about to create an explosion of growth for me on the other side called post-traumatic growth? Does that make sense? It's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, it's cool. You mentioned something as well that I want to touch on and hear more about. You mentioned that if I can do this, then I have more confidence in facing the next challenge, because we know, like, one of the hardest parts I had to get over in business was I kept waiting to get to the place where there were no more challenges. The fairy tale idea of like, no, like, let's get to the place where, we've solved this and business is just rinse and repeat and I can relax. And you realize life itself is always going to bring you challenges, right? And so I was talking to a group of owners, and this one person said, it's a very insightful question. They said, I think I have a fear of success. And how do I get over that fear of success? And I was like, oh, it sounds like what you're saying is what you imagine yourself doing in the future represents some kind of pressure and some kind of responsibility that you're saying right now, I don't feel capable of. And they're like, yes. I said, but you've got to understand, between where you are today and that vision of you in the future is you solving all these challenges along the way to get there. Right? There's not like, that's the problem with the lottery. I think that's why, the statistics of people that win the lottery, most of them ruin their life. It's because it was an overnight jump to who I am and what I have access to. It switched overnight. But the person that worked their way there, they had a series of growth moments, which each one gave you confidence and know-how to solve the next challenge, the next challenge, the next challenge. And that was like a light bulb for them. It was like, oh, I don't need to worry about me in that future picture, because if I got there, I freaking learned lessons all along the way, and I'll be able to handle that level of responsibility. It'd be like I manage no one, and I'm imagining managing 250 employees. Well, first you had to manage the first 2 hires, and then the first 10 hires, and you learn all those lessons along the way. Do you agree with that? Do you see that similarly or differently? Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're at that place where you're like, I think I'm the ceiling right now. What's the mindset? Is it a self inventory of where am I holding us back, and then what would it look like for me to improve that area? What how do we kind of think about it if we're at our capacity right now in our leadership abilities?
I think the questions are more important than the answers. Having good
Mm,
questions, like asking yourself those questions. What are the questions that you think are going to lead you to the answer for how you need to get to the next level? And then the other thing is really it's mentorship and it's coaching, because a lot of those walls, it's very hard to walk through yourself. The
mhm.
Sometimes, like, I've found books, I've like read a book that helped open my perspective and my aperture around a topic. Maybe it's like building teams and leading them. Maybe it's capital, finance, how to use capital to do business at a higher scale. Those books will open the door and help you ask better questions. And then when you find that mentor that has an answer to you or for you, you can bring those questions to them, build the relationship, and you'll get these huge unlocks. For me, I got some of that this year by joining different communities
Yeah.
that I know are communities of entrepreneurs that are all asking those same questions to people who have the answers.
I
Or
love that.
maybe not a perfect answer because I don't know if anyone has all the answers, but just, helps you move forward.
Have there been some important questions that you've asked that the value came from the question itself that come to mind? Or is that too vague of a question?
That's a good
That's
question.
yeah, but it's tough on the spot.
It's a deep one. It is tough on the spot. I'll give you one. One question for me was, how big is my vision for what I'm building?
Hmm.
And I actually had a struggle with finding purpose in continuing to grow our business. I got to a point where I realized there's pretty much no experience in the world that I can't have. I can stay at the nicest restaurant. I could, stay at the nicest hotel, eat the best food, fly first class wherever I want, have all these great experiences, go on vacation as much as I want. But that didn't feel fulfilling to me. That's not the why behind it. And it took me almost a year and a half to reconnect with that deeper why, that deeper purpose. For me, I found that purpose in service. The feeling like what I'm doing is of service and helping other people. So that for me was a question that eventually it took me a year and a half to get the answer. Maybe it
Wow.
seems so simple, but there's a difference between just saying it and actually living it.
Yeah. How did that again? You said it perfectly. Like you might have known halfway through the answer is service, but you don't believe it. You don't feel it as a felt sense of purpose until something else. Like what started to click for you that was really a purpose that you felt aligned with?
So about a year ago, I got into men's work. So I started working with other men and helping them, not so much giving them answers, but helping them ask questions and just being there and participating in that type of work. And I found through doing that one thing that really lit me up was feeling like I'm contributing to this other person's life in a very specific, real, tangible way. And
Yeah.
once I had that experience, it helped me connect deeper and deeper with that sense of purpose and find that purpose in the work that I was doing that I felt initially was mundane or didn't have a deeper purpose beyond the financial aspect. I was able to find more soul in that. And the amazing thing is, as soon as that moment happened and that unlock came for me, our business quadrupled, over the next 6
Wow.
months. So it was insane.
How do you how do you translate that soul into your business? Meaning like how do you see it now? It's like eyes to see. You were already doing it probably in some way, but what did you see that this has this impact or there's this character to what we're doing that I overlooked?
Part of it was the culture on the team. So
Mm,
when when I started to talk to them about this, about them also embodying the same value of service in the way that we show up for our subscribers, our customers, our clients, the businesses that use our technology and use our team to help them, the more we started to bring that into our culture, the more it transformed the way that they connected with their day-to-day work, that they found a different perspective on the work they were doing. Now, not everybody connected with it, but enough of them connected with it that it started to really empower the other teams. The leadership team really came from them. It started to work its way down, and the organization completely shifted. We also started to do donations. So every month we donate to a philanthropy of our team's choice so that the team feels like they're also having positive impact on the world. I think we do it either every week or every month, but we're always making these donations so that the team is able to connect the work that we're doing to having a positive impact on the world around us. I
yeah.
think that's so important. So just a couple examples, but I think it really starts at the top. The leader has to embody those characteristics, and then that can inspire the organization.
Yeah. Well, I want to brag about you for a second because the listener has no idea if you're just saying, nice platitudes or if it's real. Before we even started recording, we have just met. I mentioned I'd never been to Medellín, and without missing a beat, you opened up an invitation for us to come stay with you, for you to show us around. And I was stunned, literally like, dude, I don't even know you yet. What a nice thing to do. And I think only reason I say that is one, to make sure on record that I have that so I can take advantage of that. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but again, people hear stuff like that all the time, but I'm like, I got to see you behind before we ever started recording, and there was a natural generosity to you, like a natural, I want to serve. Let me open up my home. Let me tell you even how, great the city is and you should come. That's something you can't fake. And so it's clear that impact of finding that purpose, starting to lean into it, has actually grown roots in you and now the company.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot.
Absolutely. I want people to know that stuff. I want audience to know when something they're hearing is real, because we can all talk a good game. And then you find out the person was an asshole and yelling at their employees every day and, stealing from the company. And you're like, oh man, I thought I heard one thing. It does not seem to be the case at all with you. So let me end with this. You've already mentioned several times, mentors, learning, pushing yourself. I'm always curious. I'm an avid reader and learner. Is there any books right now that you most recommend? It could be something you read years ago or currently lighting you up that we could pass along to the audience.
Oh, well, I think I spend so much time day to day doing nonfiction work, like, in the realm of building product technology, that really the books that really inspire me are fiction. So I really like this. I'll give you a couple books. One is like Old Man and the Sea, right? We probably read it in high school at some point in time. Ernest Hemingway. It's actually a really short book, but for people like me, like I think like what I really connect to in that book is just the power of writing and how simple sentences, simple words can have so much meaning and be so profound. The book's probably only about 100 pages. My English teacher is going to yell at me because I probably, got that kind of wrong. Maybe it's a little more, but it's a short book. It's something you can read on vacation, but it's a powerful book and it has meaning just beyond the text that's there. And so it kind of gets you thinking.
Cool. Heck yeah. That's the first. Yeah. I think that's probably the first fiction book that's been mentioned on here, but I'm the same way. Like, oh yeah, I'm the same way though. Every night part of my bedtime routine is fiction. And it's because my brain is usually so locked in on, I think of it as like direct interaction with the world. Like I'm directly thinking about purpose, meaning, or problem solving. And fiction, when done well, slips those in. Like it slips it in through a different channel of your brain of like, no, I was just listening to this beautiful story and then something moved me or sank in for me. And so I've really grown in value for fiction over the last 10 years.
Awesome. Have you read a book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Powerful book. Yeah, I love that
It
book.
kept me going in my NDE, like my first 2 years of business. It was one of the books that kept me going. Just I'll never forget, in The Alchemist, the kid sells everything, right? He's like deciding to go for his hero's journey to a degree, sells everything, bets on himself, gets his ticket to go across the sea. And the very first thing that happens to him is he gets robbed and loses all of his money. And he's like, where are you, universe? Like, I thought I had a dream. I thought this was going to work. Do I just go home? And no, that was just the beginning of the journey. And I felt that way. I felt like I'd risked everything and, the universe was going to have my back. And there I was feeling like poor and destitute and whatever. And that story, again, kind of slipped that message in of like, oh, it means nothing. This is just part of the story. Like, keep going, get scrappy, find a way. So yes, I loved that book. What about that book spoke to you?
What I loved about it was just the imagination. Like as I was reading the book, there were so many moments in the book where it helped me think about the world in a more abstract way, in a less physical way, and to see past like the physical problems and to sort of look at them in a more metaphorical way. So it's hard to fully explain, but that book is so powerful. And there's some books that I just try to read every year. I'm not big on, always like rereading the same books, but there's just a few books that I just found myself every year wanting to pick up. And that's one. Another one is Naval Ravikant has this amazing series about how to get rich and find happiness or something like that. And that's an amazing one I read every year. super powerful.
Okay.
And there's another one called Siddhartha, classic, really powerful book by Herman Hesse. So
Okay.
I kind of reread those books every year, and it's just because I like how they make me feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you just gave me 3 I have not read, so I need to check those out. What was the first one? How to Get Rich and Find Happiness?
So it's How to Get Rich. Yeah, actually, just How to Get Rich.
Okay.
And it was actually originally a tweet storm. So really condensed like knowledge into like bite-sized formats that he eventually put together, and other people took that information and built it into a book.
Cool.
Naval was actually the founder of AngelList, and invested in some of the biggest Silicon Valley companies like Uber, probably even Airbnb, and so many others. And he's just got great wisdom and insight beyond, just the business side. It's the wisdom behind it as well. So super
Cool.
powerful. If you haven't read that one, I'll send it to you.
Cool. Heck yeah. Man, this is phenomenal. Manick, thank you for joining across the world, for sharing your heart and your story. This has been phenomenal, like a truly great conversation that has carried so much value. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
It's my pleasure to be here. Sure. Thank you for having me.
Founders, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and hop into our monthly founder email so we can ensure you stay on the edge of peak performance and massive business results.